to our Tuesday evening Ask the Doc call. It is such a pleasure to see all of you here tonight. My name is Lynn Matthews. I am in Arizona, and I am here tonight hosting Dr. Carolyn Hoffman, who is in Charlottesville, Virginia. What I love about this and what I love about Zoom is that it doesn't matter where you are, anywhere on the planet, you can tune in and learn about this amazing technology. For those of you who this concept of redox is brand new, sit back and put your seatbelt on. This is a really fascinating field of science. It's a fascinating technology. But really, what I think is the most important is that it is life-changing and impacts all of us. So our intention tonight is to get your questions answered. Dr. Hoffman's going to go through an incredible PowerPoint. And while she's doing that, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will be sure to go back and answer those. That's really the most important thing for us that we want you to get from this. People look at this for so many different reasons. Many people, many of you maybe, are on the call tonight because maybe you don't feel as vibrant as you want to be. Maybe there's a health challenge. Maybe it's a loved one who has a health challenge and you're exploring this to see if this could be, part of the solution. Some of us are here because we've heard there's an athletic benefit. You don't have to be a world-class athlete or an Olympic athlete, although they are using this, to benefit from it. I love to hike, I love to bike here, and I love the fact that I recover very, very quickly. I am never sore. And then others are looking at this because of the anti-aging benefits. That's one thing none of us can escape from. We're all getting 24 hours older each day. And sometimes, as Tanya was talking about, right, things happen on the outside that are visible, but then things are happening on the inside as we age that aren't so visible, and even things like sleep, affecting our energy, how quickly we bounce back from things like colds, etc. And so a lot of people are wondering, well, how does this impact this whole aging thing? And then finally, when you have something that is shifting how we can approach wellness and vitality and health, and is this impactful, there is an opportunity to make a difference in the world and to make a difference financially for yourself. And so some people are wondering, what it is like to link arms with the people who are bringing this to the world. So again, it's our intention to touch on all these things and to answer your questions. So right now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. She is, as I mentioned, in Charlottesville, Virginia. She's a traditional naturopath and has been studying that and practicing that for well over 20 years. She is on the board, the medical board for this company, which is a volunteer position. So she's just in this amazing position where her medical background and now her position on the board just gives her this incredible knowledge about what these molecules are, why they're so profound. And so I'm going to turn this over to her because she is truly one of the most eloquent speakers on this topic.
Well, thank you, Lynn. That's very sweet of you. Have you got your dog today? I think I could hear her. Anybody who was on last week, the dog was participating in our presentation, which was fun, but I wasn't certain, but it was cool. So let me just change this over and do switch on spotlight and swap over there. So welcome, everybody. We love to do this each week. We are part of the volunteer army of people around the world who just believe that if you have something that's important and can help other people, if you like to help other people, then it's information that's important that they at least learn about this. We don't know what everybody chooses to do with that information, but for me, I have spent the last 5 years now sharing this technology, starting with my own clients and starting with my family, and watching some really unique things happen that caught my attention, made me wonder if this was very much the missing link, the thing that would kind of pull everything together. And I'm sure if you're on this call and you're interested in health and you're one of those people who pursues, whatever option there is to help you achieve that better place of vitality, or as Lynn said, overcome some kind of a challenge, I'm probably sure that we've all experienced frustrations. We've all experienced learning and listening about things, discovering stuff, trying different things, but sometimes we can't always reach the goal that we're trying to achieve. And I want to tell you that this, for me, in watching what has happened with my clients' outcomes and personal family experiences, has truly in this last 20 years proven itself to be the single most influential product technology I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And it's going to be something that encourages people to think differently. If you've used nutritional supplements, you'll be used to thinking in a nutritional version of a drug. In other words, we use drugs for things like blood sugar issues or for cholesterol issues or for the heart or whatever. They're targeted and specific functions. People love to get off the drugs and then they swap into the nutritional arena and they like to replace those drugs with an alternative that is natural, works differently because we support the body with nutrition as opposed to drive the body with drugs. But it's still very specific, a topic for something for the adrenal challenge, something for a digestive problem, something for the lungs. And I want you to put that aside because that's really where we function in the last century since nutrition and supplements really became part of life. And what we're going to do now is drill down into how every single cell functions. So we have no boundaries. We're not going to be thinking about those tight, focused approaches to, well, I'm thinking about my lungs or my heart or my liver. But we're going to think about how does every single cell function and the importance about that, because when we go there, we look at literally how the body actually works at this very foundational level. So I'm actually going to move over my screen and I will show you. Let me take here, where are we? We'll do this one. And Lynn, you can make sure that you can give me, no, I don't see that one there. Hang on a second, let me move it over. No, sorry, let me stop that for a second because it didn't do what I needed it to do. Let's try that again. Sorry, I think I should have moved it across my screen. There we go, let's do that. And I think this will get us there. I think that's the one. There we go. So apologies for that. So I actually talk about this as being the missing link. Why? Because when I started to see some very unique things happen for my husband, for example, who had struggled for about 22 years with being able to breathe and adequately exercise at the same time without needing some kind of support, and watching a shift that I saw take place in 2 weeks that really got me scratching my head as to why was this making the change that it was making when nothing else that we'd used in the last 22 years had that kind of impact so fast. So it got me reading the REDOX biology books and trying to scratch my head and work out, well, why was it doing what it was doing? And then I saw this next step with a client that had been challenged with one of those autoimmune conditions that in fact had happened 3 times over for her as she had encountered an insect bite. That had devastated her life for 30 years. And she was struggling and had gone in many different directions to try to resolve that without doing the drugs, as well as doing the typical medications that people will give for that. And it was just an off-the-cuff discussion with her before she'd even started to come to me that I suggested that she might want to try this and see if it was the missing link that I was beginning to think it may be, because if it was, I had a suspicion that this would really empower everything and anything that she had been trying, and maybe it was the thing to just push her across the line and reach that goal that she was trying to get to. I didn't realize that, in fact, I was going to predict the future when I said to her, try this for 3 months. You never know. If it works as well as I think it might do, you may not need me. And in fact, in 30 days, that was the case. This woman saw a 90% shift in her health that just threw me for a loop. Here we had one technology as opposed to dozens and dozens and dozens of supplements that had suddenly moved her into a place that she hadn't been able to achieve no matter what she tried before. So that really was definitely something that said to me, I've got something here that's doing something different and something that other things haven't done. And the reason is it's because we are going to talk about this mechanism called redox. I start with this picture because I want you to think about what this represents. We have these beautiful young faces, two gorgeous looking girls there, and I'm assuming from the photo that this is their grandfather in the middle. But obviously what it shows us is this aging process that changes in us. We see it on the outside. What's the connection with the apples? Well, because the decay and damage on those apples begins on the inside, and eventually we can see what has been taking place underneath the surface, because now it becomes visible on the outside. And that really is the same connection with us. It's all to do with this process of oxidizing. So redox, I mentioned this thing called redox. This is the only place that you're going to find redox, and this is why we have something so unique. Other things don't have this in it, but what is redox in itself? Fundamentally, what this redox word represents two other words, reductants and oxidants. These are the negative charges and the positive charges that are being produced in every cell. They are the operating system of the human body because they literally control all the conversation and the outcome. The interesting thing is that not simply us as humans, but our pets and our plants are governed and controlled by redox signaling molecules. And I think if you're a skeptic, as lots of us are, go put this on your animals and watch what happens, because animals don't know placebo, but they will show you outcome and improvement. This is a field of medicine now that is driving where health science is moving. Everybody is looking at this in the medical field. There are so many departments being studied worldwide in this field because this affects every single cell, and it's changing the way that doctors are looking for answers. So as I said, this is this key piece to us, but as we grow older, matching the supply and the demand that we have within the body is what is going to determine whether we experience vitality and health as we age, or whether we are more likely to be experiencing a lot of sickness. Now, oxidants, we can think of as the alarm bell for the body. They are the signal that goes up to say that there's a damaged cell somewhere and it's been detected by the body. And so oxidants are not a bad thing, even though they were given a really bad rap for so many years. They are actually the key to health, because if we keep them in check, they make sure that we heal. They pull in this healing mechanism. And so they're only a problem when it gets out of control. And really, if we think about what happens to a smoke alarm in our house and a fire that's the result of why it goes off, it would be the same in our house. If we can address that quickly, then we're not going to have massive damage. But left to go out of control, that's definitely what happens. So once an oxidant within the body raises the alarm that there's a problem, it's going to shine a light where this damaged cell exists. That helps the body find it. And what it does is brings the other side of this system into play, so that the body, having found it, can decide if we need to replace that damaged cell or whether we need to kill it off and actually put in a new cell. In other words, healing as we understand it. Now, the reductants are rather like the fire and rescue brigade, for they come in and they play that part in the healing. They hear the alarm, they see where they need to go to, they drive in, and then they decide, how do we solve the problem? If it's trauma, we can just repair that, and we all know what that looks like when we heal if we cut ourselves. But the other side of it could be, is this an aged cell that now needs to be eliminated and replaced? Or maybe it's a really badly behaved cell that's doing a lot of things that we really don't want, and it's actually affecting large areas of the body. So that really needs to be addressed. Now, if you were like I was, even back in 2011, when somebody first showed this to me, even though I didn't actually embrace the technology back then, I had never heard of redox. What is interesting is I was actually working in the field of redox because I was doing nitric oxide work with my patients. Little did I know that actually that was the first redox molecule that was named. There are multiple redox molecules. And as a result of this research, these three scientists were awarded the Nobel Prize. So there I was. I'd been working in redox since at least 2010 and hadn't got a clue. And now here's an example for you, just a very brief example, really based around more the United States than the world, of independent research facilities. A lot of these universities are either doing single studies, or some of them, like Nebraska, actually have complete medical centers that are dedicated to redox biology. That's because it's fueling where health science is moving to. And we have at least 1,400 books. One of the most recent ones was written by one of our medical board, Dr. Lee blanking out there, Osler, Dr. Osler, and that is called Redox Matters. That's a great one if you find it hard to connect all the really deep science with what does that mean for us in our life. He connects the dots between the research and what we know about how it's going to help us. But we do know that since the Nobel Prize, there's been 22 world conferences. We see scientists coming from all over the world to Paris, France, to share the latest fields of research and connect together on what that's going to mean for medicine. If you're a researcher and you love to read these things, take a look at the NIH websites, which are all the peer-reviewed studies, and then all the non-peer-reviewed, but no less valuable, can be found on Google Scholar. You'll see close to 3 million now, which kind of gives you a sense of how important this is. Just remember, if you go to Google, you need to go to Google Scholar, not just Google itself. Google is just a search engine, not a research engine. And you'll probably see a lot of personal opinions for people about this piece of salt water. And we'll kind of talk about that later and why that's such a misnomer. Now, whether, I love to say whether this was serendipity or whether this is the hand of God, Verdis Norton, who you see here on the screen, crossed paths with a company that was doing clinical research with these same signaling molecules that actually became this product that ASEA launched. And when that company was sold, or being sold, he actually bought up the 10 years of patented research at that point. They've been in clinical trials, and he tasked a new group of scientists to actually establish what was it that this previous company actually had that was so significant, and how could they do anything with it that could be sold to a pharmaceutical company. But the challenge is, scientifically, these molecules within the human body are very volatile. I put that sparkler up there because that's really what they're like. They come and go very, very quickly. We're producing them 24/7, but it's rather like a sparkler. How do you grasp hold of something that fleeting and actually stabilize it outside the human body in a bioactive form that could be beneficial to us? That was what was considered a scientific impossibility. But in 2007, that new group of PhD scientists actually did what everybody said was impossible. They stabilized it. And that became the game changer, because now we moved from science research and confined to drinking molecules from little machines that would generate them and they would last for about 30 minutes to now having a product that was available and actually had at that point a lifespan of 12 months. We now have a longer lifespan because our science has improved so much more. So let's talk about how do we make redox in the human body. I said that you eat pets and plants are alive and talking and doing the things we're doing because we are generating redox. Well, we go deep, as I said, into every single cell. We go to something called the mitochondria, which is what produces the energy that fuels every single cell in the body, which enables us to talk, to breathe, to run, to live our lives, right? Without energy, nothing is going to happen. It's no different than a car whose engine won't turn over. But it also produces these two things that I mentioned, these negative and positive charges, these reductants and oxidants, which were originally thought of as a useless part of this whole ATP process. But in fact, that Nobel Prize and previous research established that they are literally essential for us to stay alive. And so the body uses the saline that bathes the cells, and it takes the components of that saline and transforms them into these reductants and oxidants. Now, when we look at in our Krebs cycle, we have these 4 molecules that are being broken apart and reconfigured to the redox signaling. So the sodium, the chloride, the hydrogen, and oxygen. So redox molecules themselves, when we end up with them in this product, are not salt water. They started as salt water. Why? Because we have to make them from exactly what the body makes them. We can't make them with anything different. So we start with the same components, and these are electrical signals that come from those 4 chemical elements. Now, the brilliance is that we do something different, but it takes us about 3.5 days to do what the body can do in a nanosecond. So we start with this salt water, but it transforms through certain processes to become stabilized redox signaling molecules. So I think of it as the body's game of chemical scramble. Right? We have a word, or we have all these little tiles. We make different words with all of these components, and that's the same with those 4 components. We reorganize them in the body to be lots of different redox signaling molecules. So ASEA matches that transformation process by transforming these tangible ingredients, sodium, chloride, hydrogen, and oxygen, to create intangible stabilized redox signaling molecules. And where is it done? Well, this is where the magic takes place. This is the one facility in the world, because of all the patents and proprietary technology behind this process, that interestingly can't be reverse engineered, because we're not made from ingredients that are tangible by the time we finish. People can't take our bottle and empty it out and say, oh, it's made of X, Y, and Z, and actually reverse engineer, because we're now into this field of chemistry and signaling. And so they transform it, and as I said, this patented technology goes through 3.5 days. It makes the complete world supply of redox signaling, and from this facility in Salt Lake City, it gets shipped to 33 countries around the world. So every customer around the world, including all of us, is able to get their product directly from this FDA-registered facility. This is a really incredible process. If you've ever been there, you'll know how brilliant it is. And the process goes through different stagings. It's electrical frequencies, voltage and amperage and pH, and all sorts of secret factors to their patented technology that enables them to do this. And we also meet rigorous third-party standards for production, post-production, verification, and certification. And our Spanish and German laboratories that are new to the field for us, in addition to Bioagilitics out of North Carolina, are third-party facilities. They test the batches that we produce. They verify that we have redox certified signaling molecules in those bottles. So in other words, you're not buying salt and water, you're actually buying the redox certification. And what is really unique, and we're so excited about our new associations with overseas in Spain and Germany, is these facilities, not only do they test the product and verify that it is certified redox signaling molecules, but they also are independent redox research facilities. So they have lots of PhDs and doctors there doing research anyway on redox. So they are taking our product and they're actually researching it further for us in double-blind trials that will eventually be published in peer-reviewed studies. But what is more important for us as a company is they're helping us understand even more about our technology and helping us position the future of the next development of redox-based products. Like those shiny apples that we saw at the beginning and those nice young faces, you know, when we're young, we have just a complete supply of redox, and that outweighs any damage that's going on below the surface. And so what happens is that we look and we feel amazing when we're young. You know, we've got a lot more energy in our teens and our 20s than we have in our 30s and 40s, and certainly by the time we've got to 60s, 70s and 80s, our skin looks different, we recover much quicker. If we fall over in our teens and 20s, we bounce up and we don't really notice it. If we fall over in our 80s, the outcome may be pretty significant, and it may mean that we might not even survive that fall. So we are healthier, and that's because those reductants can definitely outweigh the amount of damaged cells. But with age or illness, this balance begins to shift. The body basically becomes unable to meet and keep up with the demand for attention to all of these damaged cells that are going on below the surface. So we don't repair as fast. Now, we know, even if we're not really that present to what's happening, we do know that things are changing. We know that in our 30s, we don't necessarily feel exactly like we felt in our early 20s or late teens. Certainly by the time we're 40, we know things are changing. And as we get older, we really experience loss of vitality, and we certainly see an increase in disease. Now, we know that this is changing within us because science has shown us that our production, our internal production of redox, begins to slow down by 1% per year from around the age of 15. That's really pretty young, right? I don't think we think of aging as happening to maybe in our 40s or 50s. It's really not a conscious process of noticing that we're really beginning to lose them as early as that. Now, we're not going to really feel that at that age. But I think it's interesting to see that scientifically they've also said that our metabolism has shifted so much by the time we're 35 that we're actually going to fight the rest of our lives to even begin to try to achieve the balance that we had at that point. And that really kind of goes with this whole arc of aging and the loss of redox, the loss also of stem cells, of collagen. This is all tied into this whole process. Now we get to 2016, and what I find fascinating is the Huffington Post starts talking about 5 emerging technologies in science that are going to shape our future. 4 of them were just research. One, redox signaling technology, wasn't just simply a research area, but they talked about our company. You see the old bottles from the original production, because we were and still are the only company that not only has stabilized these molecules, but can produce them for people to actually consume. And as you'll see in the yellow, it talks about emerging technology that enables us to insert, in other words, drink healthy redox signaling molecules, and that really helps our body to repair and replenish aging cells. And since every organ is made up of one of those 70 to 100 trillion cells that we've got, we can really influence, as I say, the whole body, and we don't have to think of symptoms. Now, redox does a number of different things naturally within the body. It's going to detect damaged cells, as we talked about. It's going to protect the natural lifespan of a cell. And that varies from, if it's a stomach cell or an eye cell, they'll turn over pretty quickly. If it's a bone cell, it's a matter of years. So there's a different lifespan, but it protects that natural lifespan. We talked about the fact that once we've detected a damaged cell, the body is going to send in the signaling to repair or to replace those cells with nice new healthy ones, in other words, heal. It also signals and keeps gene expression, gene regulation at its peak. That's the outcome, the conversation of the DNA of us as human beings. That needs to be pretty accurate if we don't want to have a problem. And it also does something that's really been significantly important in the last few years, is adaptive response. What is that? Our innate immune signaling system is the thing that's on high alert. All right, it recognizes and detects when we're in contact with things like viruses and bacteria or environmental toxins that will damage us. SCENAR also does clinical studies, and what we know from our double-blind clinical studies is that we activate our own internal antioxidants. Glutathione and superoxide dismutase are the master antioxidants of every single cell of the body. They are the most powerful forms of antioxidants we can have. We churn them out in the trillions throughout the day, and there's no way that we can ever consume an antioxidant supplement that we put in our mouth and we have to digest that would ever match what we can naturally produce. It protects the oxidization of LDL and DNA. And one of the other things is that we see a 20 to 31% improvement in genetic signaling for 100% of people on a test study. This was done at Torit Labs. This was an 8-week double-blind placebo-controlled study. Torit Labs is genetic specialists. You might know them from Ancestry.com, but they do lots of genetic testing for people all over the world. And they took a group of 35-year-olds, again, who thought they were healthy until their blood was analyzed pre the test. And we saw that they've already started to have downturn in the way that their genes are signaling and communicating. But after 8 ounces a day for 8 weeks, 100% of the people in that group consuming the ASEA Redox had a 20 to 31% improvement in 5 major gene signaling pathways. It's interesting to note that when I spoke to the PhD scientist who was leading this, he actually said that all of the genes had this uniform improvement, but gene study and science itself is not yet that fully developed. So what they confined themselves was to talk about the genes that most people are fully mapped on and they understand. Interesting to note also, for those of you who get caught up in the saltwater piece, they gave them plain saline, the saline that we start our 3.5-day process with. And it was fascinating to me to see that 100% of people could have a uniform improvement on ASEA and 0% improvement on saline, that placebo. Those are very unusual results. So what does that mean? Well, it improves things like our healthy immune response, healthy inflammatory response, improved things like cardiovascular health and vein elasticity, improved gut health, as well as the opposite side of the coin, the challenges we have with absorption, digestive enzyme production, plus hormone vitality and modulating vitality and wellness. You know, those things to me are like the 5 most important areas that aren't just simply one single word. They actually influence tons and tons and tons of other signaling processes. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So here, for example, is the inflammatory signaling pathway. You'll see that from it, it actually opens up a door to 15 other signaling mechanisms. And some of them have some fancy names to them, but I would just ask you to pay attention to what's in blue, because those are the things for us as human beings that would be strengthened and improved by having a strong signaling pathway. You know, mood, nowadays we've seen so much anxiety and depression and challenges with PTSD, you know, that has become part and parcel of the stressors of life. And so to feel happy and to be able to be on top of the world and regulate that is incredibly important. If you've got gut challenges, you are going to have challenges with pathway number 1 because they go together. That serotonin is where it sits in the gut. Improving how our brain functions, how we can sleep much better, as we said, keeping internal antioxidants at peak performance, being able to tell stem cells what they need to do, kind of important if you're thinking of stem cell infusions or injections. You know, make sure that you've got a good bevy of redox in you first so that those stem cells will know what to do. If you're challenged with thyroid signaling, watching the body, you know, rebalance things and be able to make changes that bring back stories to us from people saying, you know, my doctor took me off my medication and my hair's grown back and I'm doing really, really well. And the Lancet, as well as many other medical publications, talks a lot about the connection between redox deficiency and diabetes. So, you know, suffice to say that really this is important to everybody, and we really need to keep these signaling pathways strong if we want to stay healthy. So if you're wondering about the drink, so this comes in a 32-ounce bottle. You know, what would you need for you? Because our journeys with this extraordinary technology are completely unique. Your experience will not be that necessarily of somebody else's, and you can talk to everybody and anyone who's ever used this. I think all of our stories are different because it's what our body chooses to do with it. And what do we know, however, about the kind of typical statistics would be if you were to drink 4 ounces a day, which would be 1 bottle in the first week, 85% of people are not actually going to feel anything happen below the surface. So if you continue to do that, we know by the time we get to the end of the first month, around 50% of people will see something that they're looking for. But how do we get to the 90%? That is at the 90-day point. What we see is 90% of people are beginning to see those changes that they're seeking. Why is that? Because they're saturating themselves with a higher amount of redox. And nowadays, I'm sure, like most of us, we all get pretty impatient. We want to see that kind of quick response, which we're so used to with the drug. But we have to remember a drug is going to force our body to do something, whereas here we're going to support the body to do something. But the trick is the 8 ounces a day. We often will call it the magic 8. I was pretty cynical about that when I first heard about it. But the reason we call it the magic 8 is because when we saturate with those 8 ounces in that first month, we are going to see a quicker response from the body because it's got more to work with, and some really interesting things come a lot quicker. So we encourage people to do that. All our clinical studies are done on 8 ounces. And so if you haven't seen anything at the first week, then just double up for the rest of the month and play around with this and see what happens. But we know that it's totally non-toxic. So that's one thing. If people are very, very sick, there are some people who like to drink a whole bottle of this a day. We hope you're not going to need that, but there are people who do. Can't be allergic to it because it's in you, me, pets, and plants. And one very reassuring thing that I cannot say about any other kind of supplements, certainly not in the herbal arena or the capsule or tablet arena, is that this is transparent to medication. What that means is you don't need to change anything that you're doing with your medication. Just add this in, benchmark everything about your health, and just track the changes and watch what happens. Your body's going to reveal some interesting things. Lynn mentioned that we have Olympic athletes on this, and we do, and here's an example of some of the people that are using this product technology. Appalachian Human Performance Labs down in North Carolina under Dr. David Neiman do a lot of research on the impact this has for athletes. And what we see is that those studies show us that they have a 29% increase in endurance and performance. We can all do with more energy, right? We've all got busy lives. If you feel like, you're running out of enough fuel somewhere in the day, this would be the thing that would fuel you equally as much as it would those Olympic athletes. So as we said, we don't have to need to be an athlete to use this and benefit from it. Sharper mental acuity. That's important for all of us these days, right? We want to keep that brain really sharp. Increases in how our body takes up oxygen, a 12% increase in that. And metabolite studies. Lots of things that really are important to Olympic athletes and athletes really measuring their performance in a very detailed way. But it still has the same playback for us. And if you're interested, take a look at that website to see what they do with it. I want to talk about what was a 5-year project. So being able to take this liquid, which is volatile, it starts to react the moment it comes into contact with us, and find something that wouldn't make it activate, and be able to put it into a gel that we could use on the outside of our skin. Topical application. That's 5 years of work. That was an amazing feat. And so we have the same liquid in here, stabilized by a magnesium fluorosilate silica gel that just suspends the liquid. And you'll see that that liquid is still just as clear. It doesn't smell of anything. It doesn't leave a residue in any way. And it's very light and easy to apply to the skin. You can see some of the results because, as Alan talked about on our testimony at the beginning, this is the derma test results. Faster skin cell recovery in 28 days. That's why we call it Renew 28, right? It actually is anti-aging. It's turning around those cells and putting them back more to where they were when we were younger. Our skin cells take about 90 days to turn over by the time we're 50, but only 28 when we're young. So who wouldn't want that, right? Resisting the aging process from the outside. And you can see some other benefits from it. But really what caught my attention was how you use this for something that hurts. The athletes love it for that reason, and we can benefit too. I would encourage you, if you have anything that hurts, rate that level of discomfort. We would do it on a 1 to 10. 1 would be very little, 10 would be very severe. Rate your level of discomfort. Check out what your range of motion is. Just know what your limits are. Take photos if necessary. How far can you bend with your knees, or maybe raise your shoulder, or maybe you've got a stiff back. Shake it up because it does separate a little bit when it sits. And as I said, you can see that it's totally clear. And apply this 3 times to that area that's hurting. 3 times. in 5 minutes. Wait 5 minutes. Come back and see what happens. You know, if you try that on 10 people, I think you'd be pretty surprised at how many people would see a reaction. This was what I took into my clinic, and I did exactly that with every client that came in who had anything that was causing an issue, whether it was a hip, whether it was a sinus challenge, whether it was a headache, whether it was a broken toe, it was bruising. We just did this as a baseline, the challenge, put the gel on 3 times in 5 minutes, wait 5 minutes, and get feedback. That was all I said. Would you give me feedback? I'm trying out something new. And if you want to know how quickly this is actually impacting the body, because you're not going to feel it if you drink it, go do that for yourself, because it helps you get a sense of how this interacts with the human potential. I saw at least 10 out of 10 people get changes in under 10 minutes. Some of those were so astounding to me that it left me breathless as to how this is doing what it's doing. But it's not an analgesic. It's targeting redox to get the cells to talk and begin to do the things that we've forgotten how to do, which is to heal. These are some of the examples of that clinical study. We love to look at the outcomes, which might take us a little longer when we're drinking, and you can see tone, elasticity, fine lines, you know, that irritation under the skin settling down. You can see here, you know, a lot of inflammation on the face on the left and really changing. And if we look at the ones on the nose, this is an old healing that didn't take place when you've got something that hangs around for a long time and it should have gone away. And here we opened up those cells and it started to talk again, and the body said, oh, I've got a job to finish off, let me go and do it. We have additional technology in the redox field now. The nutrition is not redox, right? Redox is not nutrition. Nutrition is the materials that we build the cell with. There's organic, whole food, vegan, phenomenal baseline product technology that supports feeding the cells, and that's the materials to build the house, and the ASEA is the labor to make it happen. The 2 product technologies on the right, the powders, the cell performance energy in the yellow, the mood in the blue, and the mind in the red, are very easy to use powders. They come in little sachets. You can just pop them in water. Anything else, you can sling them in your hot drinks. You can put them in your smoothies. And why are they different? Well, the blue and the white are pure redox. These are looking at the new field of how we use redox signals to target the cells to produce very specific outcomes that we want. Energy is not a hypey energy. It's just going to get in the cells and power them to produce sustained energy. Really amazing support if you need more during the day. Mood is phenomenal for taking away the hiss and the confusion and the overwhelm of the day, or if you're feeling overloaded. And mind really helps us focus. Those also work cumulatively. And we have this redox-based skincare program as well, which is out of peer-reviewed research that we've created. So those are the only redox-based skincare products on the market, and they are phenomenal. I want to show you the outcome of thinking about what age and cellular decline looks like as we begin to get older. We feel less healthy, we look less healthy, and we just go downhill, and that's what we all know is aging. But I want to show you that this is our Rosie, and how she is an example that not simply from the outside but from the inside, how taking these redox signaling molecules literally interrupts the breakdown of aging and turns things around. We're not just anti-aging, guys, we're actually reverse aging, because if you look at her at 91, she's gone 7 years on and she looks at least 10 years younger. And I've never come across a product that can actually do that. There's no single product I've worked with. If you're looking for more resources, you listen to some of them for real redox results as we started our call this evening. ASEA Healthy Self is our Facebook group. Ask the person who's invited you to the call to join that one. There's over 204,000 people in there now. And we also have the gettingyongerclub.com, which is Dr. Silverman's link to all sorts of resources on this product technology. I want to jump across to Lynn. Let me stop the share there, Lynn, and let's bring you on. And where are we? There we go. And let's kind of move to the 6th piece that you talked about, Lynn. You know, what I call is our volunteer army, right? Those of us who get an experience with the product. We become really sold on what this technology can do. Maybe it's because of ourselves, or as you said, the family and the people that we love. And, how many of us have shared a great restaurant or a good movie that we saw, or, a shop to go buy something that we love or whatever. We've told somebody of something that can help them. It's pretty superficial in many ways in life. And this is very profound. We know, those of us who've worked with this a long time, see how profound it is. So I'd love you to kind of share what, you came in because of the product and the personal experience, but, you're here as a volunteer doing what we do to help educate other people, and, talk a little bit about, what is so significant about why we're doing this.
I think what it is not just the technology, because as you've said, it is a profound technology and impacts every single person and animal. But I think even beyond that is it gives us the ability to create an impact in this lifetime with something that no one's ever seen before, with a company that truly puts people and purpose and principles before all else, before ego, before economics. And I heard them say that once, and I thought, well, that's a really nice marketing slogan, right? But it's been almost 9 years now that I've worked with this company and the people, and it's all the same people, which tells you a lot, in a changing world for these same people to be doing this 9 years later. And I've seen that play out where they do put people and purpose, principles first. They are all about bettering people's lives. They want to be a force for good in the world. When Vertus Norton, who you mentioned earlier, and you talked about this pharmaceutical company, he really thought he was going to stabilize the molecules and flip this over as a business play, sell it to a pharmaceutical company, and go back into retirement. But when it came down to doing the deal with them, and they were offering him a very large legacy type of money, they said that the one caveat in this contract was that all the people that were taking it, including himself, and this focus group he had of people, they all had to come off it. It would not be publicly available. And he was kind of shocked by that. And he said, there's a handful of people who are, in his opinion, still here, in their opinion, because this technology had helped their body, achieve a more healthy state. And the pharmaceutical company just said, people deal with their health in any way they can. If you want this money, you walk away. And to his credit, because I don't know what any of us on this call would do. It was a significant amount of money. What would you do, right, if you were offered that? And he said, you know what, morally, ethically, I cannot do that. This deserves to be in the hands of the people. And it was that moment that shift was made. He created this company called ASEA and tried to figure out how to bring this to the world. And I just think of all of the hundreds, if not thousands of lives of people I know personally, people who, all of the other associates and this volunteer army have shared stories about lives that have been changed. I wonder what those lives would have been like had he made the other decision. And for me, that is really why I'm still here 9 years later, because it is a company that has so much integrity, bringing to market this profound product. And it's something that, as you know, you can't just put this on the shelf in a health food store or at a Whole Foods, or because people are going to be like my daughter when I brought it to her, she looked at it and she said, look at the ingredients. It says sodium chloride in water. What is salt water going to do for me? People don't understand redox yet. And so I think he was very, very wise to have chosen this word of mouth distribution method. They're a biotech company, but they still need to distribute it. How do I get it out there? It needs an army of people who have had experiences and can educate other people. And that is what I have loved every moment of it. It has been fun. It has been life-changing, just being out there sharing it, because of the lives you change and the people you meet. Not just the people you're sharing the product with, but the people like yourself and a lot of the associates who are on this call. We might not have ever crossed paths had it not been for this. And some of my dearest friends are people now who I have met through ASEA. So I think there's so many aspects of this, the product, the company, and this opportunity that to take it and generate, a secondary income or a primary income, if that is what you desire. But if you just want to help your family members, you can do that too. That's actually where I started out, right? It was just bringing this to my family, my parents, my daughter, everybody who was around me. And then it just became something bigger because I kind of caught the vision of how profound this was. So that's, on Saturday mornings, for those of you who are interested in learning a little bit more about, how can I do this business? Is it hard? Is it easy? It's just sharing. Like Dr. Hoffman said, you talk to people about movies and recipes all the time. It's honestly not a whole lot different. It's just sharing something from your heart. But on Saturday mornings on this same Zoom at 10:30 East Coast time, one of Dr. Hoffman's colleagues on the board, Dr. David Silverman, he will spend 30 minutes just answering questions about the product. And then we switch gears. And at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock, we spend 30 minutes talking about the business and, how do you do this business and answering questions on the business. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely join us on Saturday morning and get those questions answered as well. But I know right now we've got about 10 minutes. I saw a few questions come. Mm-hmm. So I want to bring you back out here, Dr. Hoffman, so that we can answer some of these great questions.
Absolutely.
Recording stopped.
So let's take some of those questions. I saw some good ones there. So let us just also